The rooms were too cold, the chairs too tall, and the air too thin. Commander James Wilson shifted uncomfortably as he sat beside Ambassador Lisa Reed in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation. This was supposed to be a peace talk. It felt more like a trial. High Counselor Vex stared down at the humans from his elevated platform. His 6 eyes blinked in an unsettling pattern. "The Confederation has concerns about your recent colony expansions," Vex said. His translator made his voice sound flat and emotionless. "We suggest you pull back from the Orion sector immediately." Lisa leaned forward. "That sector was approved for human settlement 3 years ago by this very council." "Circumstances change," Vex replied simply. James watched the other alien representatives. None would meet his gaze. Something was wrong. His wristcom vibrated. A private message from Earth Command. *emergency. Colony NEUWED under ATTCK. Thousands dead. Return IMMEDIATELI*. James felt the blood drain from his face. He showed the message to Lisa, whose eyes widened in shock. "This meeting is over," James announced, standing up. "While we talk peace, your forces attack our colony." Vex's face remained still. "I know nothing of such actions." "New Eden is burning right now," Lisa said, her voice shaking with anger. "Thousands of our people are dead." "A regrettable misunderstanding, perhaps," Vex said, but James saw the slight movement at the corner of his mouth. He was lying. Back on Earth, the War Council gathered in the underground bunker beneath Old Washington. President Maria Torres looked at the grim faces around her. "They attacked without warning," she said. "The colony had no military presence. It was families, farmers, children." Admiral Thomas Reynolds, his weathered face showing every year of his 6 decades of military service, spoke quietly. "Madam President, we've tried diplomacy for 200 years. The Confederation has never seen us as equals. Today they showed their true intentions." The room fell silent as video feeds from New Eden played on the screens. Buildings burned. Bodies lay in the streets. The Confederation ships had been thorough. "They think we're weak," James said, having just arrived from the failed peace talks. "They think we're divided." Lisa nodded. "They've always underestimated us. They evolved as herd creatures, seeking consensus. They can't understand how our history of conflict shaped us." President Torres stood up. Her decision was made. "For 2 centuries, we've hidden our true strength. We've played the role they expected. The newcomers, the learners, the lesser species." Her eyes hardened. "That ends today." Across Earth and its 47 colonies, hidden doors opened. Mountain ranges shifted, revealing massive shipyards. Orbital platforms transformed from science stations into military command centers. The sleeping giant was waking up. On the Confederation homeworld, Intelligence Officer Krell rushed into Vex's private chambers. "High Counselor, the humans. They're mobilizing." Vex dismissed the concern with a wave. "Their fleet is small, primitive." Krell's 4 hands trembled as he displayed the incoming sensor data. This isn't the fleet we knew about." The holographic display showed hundreds, then thousands of warships emerging from hidden bases throughout human space. "Impossible," Vex whispered. President Torres stood before the global broadcast system. Her message would reach every human settlement and every Confederation world. "For centuries, we sought peace. We extended our hands in friendship. Today, those hands were slapped away with the blood of our children." She paused, her resolve visible to all. "The Confederation believes they understand war. They do not. They have forgotten what it means to face an enemy who evolved as predators, who survived by outthinking and outfighting every threat." Her voice grew stronger. "Humanity does not want this war. But make no mistake, we will finish it." Throughout the galaxy, the message was received. Many species trembled. Some began to prepare. A few, secretly oppressed by the Confederation, dared to hope. Humanity had chosen war. and the galaxy knew it was over. Admiral Thomas Reynolds stood on the bridge of the EDS Dreadnought, Earth's largest warship that, until yesterday, didn't officially exist. For 20 years, he had commanded a small, outdated fleet, a carefully crafted illusion to keep the Confederation blind to humanity's true power. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said his second-in-command, Captain Laura Hayes. Reynolds nodded. "Begin Operation Awakening." Throughout human space, massive hangar doors opened in asteroids, gas giant moons, and pocket dimensions. Ships that had been built and hidden for decades emerged into the light. "Transmission from Earth Command, sir," Laura said. President Torres appeared on the main screen. "Admiral, the time for hiding is over. Show them who we really are." On the Confederation capital world, chaos erupted in the Grand Hall. "This cannot be accurate." General Azor slammed his fist on the table. "The humans have barely 50 warships." Krell, the intelligence officer, pointed to the updated scans. "Our latest count shows over 3,000 vessels, General, and more appearing every hour." High Counselor Vex entered the room. The usual respect he commanded was noticeably absent. "How could we miss this?" Vex demanded. Krell brought up ancient records on his terminal. "I found these in our deep archives. Studies of human history from when we first contacted them. They evolved as pack hunters, apex predators. While our ancestors learned to avoid conflict through consensus, humans mastered it." "Theoretical nonsense," Azor scoffed. "The attack on New Eden was your plan, General," Vex said coldly. "You assured me humans would back down." A junior officer burst into the room. "The human fleet has arrived at Proxima Centauri. They've engaged our forces." The Battle of Proxima Centauri should have been simple. The Confederation had stationed their third fleet there, 200 ships against a human force of just 30. Captain Ben Miller of the EDS Relentless gave the order, "Deploy the mirror drones." Thousands of small devices spread out around the human ships. The Confederation vessels fired, but their weapons hit only reflections and empty space. "They're confused," Ben's tactical officer reported with a smile. "Their targeting systems can't lock on." "Begin Phase 2, Ben ordered. Human ships attacked from impossible angles, seeming to appear and disappear. The technology had been developed in secret decades ago, short-range jump drives that could make micro-jumps within a battle. On the Confederation flagship, the commander watched in horror as his orderly formation fell apart. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "No species uses such chaotic tactics." Within an hour, the mighty Third Fleet was in ruins. The humans had lost only 3 ships. Back on Earth, the War Council reviewed the victory. "The Proxima battle will buy us time," Reynolds said, "but the Confederation still outnumbers us." Robert Miller, lead scientist for the Defense Department, stepped forward. His team had spent years studying alien technology, finding ways to improve it that its original creators never imagined. "We've finished the gravity wave disruptors," he announced. "One ship equipped with this can disable an entire enemy fleet." James Wilson, now a general, smiled grimly. "The Confederation builds weapons to fight the wars they understand. We build weapons to fight wars they cannot imagine." In his private quarters, High Counselor Vex reviewed the Proxima battle recordings for the 20th time. "They let us believe they were weak," he whispered. "All these years." Krell entered with a data crystal. "High Counselor, we've intercepted their communications. They're calling this Operation Awakening. And there's more." A hologram showed massive shipyards on Mars, Jupiter's moons, and throughout human territory, building more warships. "How long until their next attack?" Vex asked. "That's just it, sir," Krell replied, his voice trembling. "They're not building up for one big attack. They're attacking everywhere at once." On the displays, red dots appeared across the galaxy map. Confederation outposts under simultaneous assault. The war had only just begun, and already the galaxy was changing forever. Captain Maria Ortega walked through the battle-scarred corridors of the EDS Relentless. 3 weeks into the war, her ship had already fought in 5 major battles. The crew was tired but determined. "Status report," she said, entering the bridge. "All systems at 85%, Captain," replied her first officer, Jack. "Repairs to the port shield generator will be complete in 4 hours." Maria nodded. "And our next mission?" Jack pulled up a holographic map. "The Confederation has a major supply base here, at Rigel 7. High Command wants us to destroy it." Maria studied the map. The base was heavily defended with 50 ships and orbital weapons platforms. "They expect us to attack in force," she said. "So we won't." Lieutenant David Foster and his special operations team prepared in the Relentless's hangar bay. Their ship looked like a small Confederation cargo vessel, a perfect disguise. "Remember," David told his team, "we have 3 hours to plant the devices and get out. The Relentless will create a distraction, but the main job is ours." One of his soldiers, Kate, checked her weapons. 50 of us against an entire base. I like those odds." David smiled. Before the war, Kate had been a historian. Now she was one of his best soldiers. That was the human advantage. Adaptability. In the Confederation war room, General Azor reviewed the latest reports. "The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered," he told his officers. "When we expect a direct attack, they strike from behind. When we fortify our defenses, they bypass them completely." A tactical officer spoke up. "Sir, we outnumber them. Our technology is more advanced in many areas. Why can't we defeat them?" Azor pointed to the battle recordings. "Because they don't follow patterns. Look at their command structure. Each human captain makes independent decisions instead of waiting for orders. That should create chaos in their ranks," another officer said. "Instead, it creates opportunities," Azor replied grimly. "They're not fighting as one fleet. They're fighting as hundreds of individual units, each one thinking and adapting separately." David's team drifted toward the Rigel 7 base in their disguised ship. The Confederation guards scanned them and waved them through. Just another supply vessel. Once docked, they split into 10 teams, moving silently through the massive station. They planted small devices at key locations, power junctions, shield generators, life support systems. Team 3 reporting in. Kate's voice came through David's earpiece. "Devices planted. Moving to extraction point." "All teams," David whispered. "You have 30 minutes to reach the ship." On the Relentless, Maria watched the clock. "Begin the distraction." Her ship suddenly appeared near the base, weapons firing. The Confederation fleet scrambled to respond, moving away from the base to engage this unexpected threat. "Keep them occupied for 20 more minutes," Maria ordered. "Then jump out." David's team made it back to their ship just as alarms blared throughout the base. They undocked and accelerated away, ignored in the confusion of the battle. "Detonation in 3, 2, 1, David said. The devices they planted weren't explosives. They were signal scramblers. Across the base, systems went haywire. Ships lost control. Weapons shut down. Communications failed. The Relentless jumped back in, along with 5 other human vessels. Against the now defenseless base, the battle was over in minutes. That night, news of Rigel 7's fall spread across Confederation space. It had been their largest supply base. The loss would cripple their operations in 3 sectors. "How?" High Counselor Vex demanded. "How do they disable our entire defense system?" Krell showed him the recovered human device. It was small, elegant, and devastating in its simplicity. "They didn't build this to fight us," Krell explained. "They built it years ago, studying our technology, finding weaknesses we never imagined." Vex stared at the star map, where more and more territories were turning from Confederation blue to human red. "They'd been preparing for this war long before we gave them a reason to fight it," he said quietly. "And now the galaxy is paying the price." 3 months into the war, Admiral Reynolds stood before the holographic map in Earth's war room. Blue dots representing Confederation forces were being steadily replaced by red human-controlled territories. Their central command structure is their weakness, Reynolds explained to President Torres. They can't make decisions without consulting their chain of command. And we're exploiting that, the president asked. Every day, Reynolds nodded. Our captains have authority to act on their own. They don't wait for orders when opportunities arise. Commander Wilson, newly promoted after his success in the Delta sector, pointed to a massive gas giant called Theta 9. This is our next target, he said. The Confederation has gathered 300 ships here. It's their largest remaining fleet. President Torres looked concerned. How many ships can we send? 100, Wilson replied with a slight smile. But numbers aren't everything. On the Confederation homeworld, High Counselor Vex faced growing dissent. The war is going badly, one council member said. Perhaps we should seek peace terms. The humans would demand too much, Vex replied. They would want independence for all our subject worlds. Krell, monitoring the meeting from his intelligence post, quietly sent a message to several other Confederation species. Many had been forced to join the Confederation centuries ago. Now they watched humanity's success with growing interest. The humans fight differently, Krell wrote. Perhaps they would rule differently too. Near Theta 9, Commander Wilson's fleet prepared for battle. The massive gas giant's complex magnetic fields and dense ring system would make this fight unlike any other. The Confederation forces outnumber us 3-1, Wilson told his captains over the secure channel. But they positioned their ships in a standard defense formation. Captain Ortega of the Relentless studied the enemy positions. They're expecting us to attack head-on. Exactly, Wilson smiled. So we won't. Captain Miller, your ships will hide in the planet's rings. Captain Ortega, your group will approach from below the ecliptic plane. My ships will be the bait. Each captain nodded, understanding their role without needing detailed orders. This freedom to adapt was humanity's greatest strength. General Azor watched as human ships appeared at the edge of the Theta 9 system. Only 30 ships, he said in disbelief. They're either desperate or foolish. Or they have a plan we don't see, his second-in-command suggested. Nonsense, Azor replied. Move the fleet forward to engage them. The mighty Confederation Armada moved in perfect formation toward the small human force. Their discipline was flawless, their numbers overwhelming. Then everything changed. Human ships burst from the planet's rings, attacking from angles the Confederation ships couldn't defend. More human vessels rose from below, targeting engines and weapons systems with surgical precision. It's a trap, Azor shouted. Reform the fleet, defend our flanks. But his captains waited for specific orders, unable to adapt without direction. By the time those orders came, it was too late. The Battle of Theta 9 lasted just 6 hours. When it ended, the Confederation had lost 200 ships. The human fleet lost 23. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, populations that had suffered under Confederation rule began to rebel. The balance has shifted, Ambassador Reed told the emergency session of Earth's government. We're receiving messages from 17 species asking to join an alliance with humanity. Back on the Confederation homeworld, Krell was summoned to Vex's private chambers. We need a new strategy, Vex said, his voice hollow. The humans aren't just winning battles. They're turning our own subjects against us. Krell hesitated, then spoke the truth no one wanted to admit. Perhaps, High Counselor, this war was lost the moment we gave humanity a reason to fight. Outside the window, protests filled the streets as citizens demanded new leadership. The Confederation, which had ruled for thousands of years, was beginning to crumble. The alien scientist Trell had never seen a human up close before. From a distance, they didn't look dangerous. No claws, no extra limbs, not particularly large. Yet here he was, seeking their protection. The Confederation is building a planet killer, Trell told Admiral Reynolds and Captain Ortega. His four hands trembled as he pushed a data crystal across the table. It can destroy all life on Earth with one shot. Admiral Reynolds studied the plans. How long until it's ready? 2 weeks, Trull replied. I couldn't stay silent. Not even for my own people. Captain Ortega looked at the scientist with newfound respect. Why did you choose to help us? Trull's large eyes blinked slowly. Because in 300 years, the Confederation never gave my people freedom. You've been fighting for 6 months, and already you've liberated 12 worlds, and asked nothing in return. On one such liberated world, Commander Wilson met with representatives from 5 different species. Once forced to serve the Confederation, they now look to humanity for leadership. We want to fight alongside you, said Mox, a tall, slender being whose people had been soldiers for the Confederation. Teach us how humans wage war. Wilson shook his head. We don't want to teach you to be like us. Your species has its own strengths. Use those. The alien representatives looked confused. This wasn't how conquerors usually behaved. The Confederation made everyone fight their way, Wilson explained. That's why they're losing. On the Relentless, Captain Ortega prepared her crew for their most dangerous mission yet, destroying the Confederation's planet killer before it could target Earth. This won't be like our other battles, she told them. The weapon is hidden in the heart of Confederation space, guarded by their elite ships. Lieutenant Foster, now leading an expanded Special Forces team, studied the station schematics. We'll need to get inside and destroy it from within. Exactly, Ortega nodded. And we'll have only one chance. Throughout Confederation territory, fear spread like wildfire. Stories of human soldiers circulated, tales that grew with each telling. They don't feel pain like we do, one Confederation soldier told another. I saw a human keep fighting with injuries that would kill one of us. Their ships appear from nowhere, said another. They have technology the High Council said was impossible. High Counselor Vex, hearing these reports, grew increasingly desperate. We must use the planet killer as soon as possible, he told General Azor. Destroy Earth, and this rebellion ends. What Vex didn't know was that his private communications were being intercepted. Krell, once his loyal intelligence officer, now led a growing resistance within the Confederation itself. The humans aren't the monsters Vex claims, Krell told his fellow dissidents. Look at how they treat the worlds they've liberated. No forced labor. No resource theft. They offer protection without demanding servitude. The Relentless approached the secret Confederation base using stolen identification codes. Inside the ship, Foster and his team prepared for insertion. Once we're in, Foster told them, we have 30 minutes to reach the core and plant the charges. Captain Ortega watched them board their small craft. If you succeed, you save Earth. If you fail, we won't fail, Foster said simply. As the Special Forces team launched toward the station, 3 Confederation patrol ships suddenly appeared. They've spotted us, Ortega's first officer reported. Protect Foster's team at all costs, Ortega ordered. Open fire. The Relentless charged the patrol ships, drawing their attention away from the small insertion craft. The battle erupted in brilliant flashes of weapons fire. Foster watched through the viewport as the Relentless took heavy damage while creating their diversion. Now we really can't fail, he told his team as they approached the station's outer airlock. Not after that sacrifice. Across the galaxy, millions of beings watched the unfolding news with bated breath. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of the entire galaxy. Lieutenant Foster and his team moved silently through the dark corridors of the Confederation weapons station. 3 of his soldiers were already dead, but they had reached the main control room. Plant the charges, Foster ordered. We have 10 minutes before their security teams break through the barricade. Kate worked quickly, placing explosives around the core of the planet killer weapon. This should be enough to destroy the whole station. A loud bang echoed as Confederation forces tried to break through the sealed door. 5 minutes left, Foster said, checking his timer. The weapons control panel suddenly lit up. On the screen, A countdown appeared. "They've activated it remotely," Kate said, her face pale. "It's targeting Earth right now." Foster stared at the countdown. 3 minutes until firing. Not enough time to escape. "New plan," he said. "We don't blow it up. We redirect it." On Earth, President Torres and Admiral Reynolds watched the emergency transmission from the Relentless. Captain Ortega's face was barely visible through the smoke on her damaged bridge. "Foster's team is inside," she reported, "but the weapon has been activated. We've lost contact with them." Reynolds looked at the planetary defense systems. "If that weapon fires, even our shields won't save us." Suddenly, a new signal broke through. It was Foster. "We've taken control of the weapon," he said, his voice breaking up. "Redirecting target now." "Where are you aiming it?" Torres asked. "The only place we can in time. This station." Foster's voice was calm. "It's been an honor serving Earth." The transmission cut off. On the Confederation homeworld, High Counselor Vex received the emergency alert. "What do you mean, target changed?" he demanded. "The weapon is now targeting its own station," the officer reported, horror in his voice. Vex stared in disbelief. "Humans would sacrifice their own people. How can we fight an enemy willing to do that?" Behind him, Krell and a group of armed resistance members entered the council chamber. "You won't have to fight much longer," Krell said. "The council is relieved of duty. This war ends now." Throughout Confederation space, the news spread rapidly. The planet killer had destroyed itself. Earth was safe, and on the Confederation homeworld, the government had fallen. In the war room on Earth, a moment of silence honored Foster and his team. Then, Admiral Reynolds turned to the galactic map. "The Confederation's main fleet is falling back to their home systems," he reported. "They're consolidating for a last stand." Ambassador Reed, who had spent the war building relationships with liberated worlds, spoke up. "We've received a message. The new Confederation leadership is requesting peace talks." "What terms are they offering?" President Torres asked. "Surprisingly favorable ones," Reed replied. "They'll recognize all liberated worlds, pay reparations, and dismantle their remaining superweapons." Reynolds looked skeptical. "After all this fighting, they just give up." Reed shook her head. "It's not the same leadership. Krell and the Resistance have taken control. They want peace." President Torres considered this. "And if we refuse, if we push for total victory, then we destroy what's left of their civilization," Reynolds said quietly. "We can do it, but is that the galaxy we want to build?" The room fell silent as Earth's leaders faced their most important decision. They had started this war to protect humanity. Now they had to decide how to end it. "Contact our allied species," Torres finally said. "I want their input before we decide." A day ago, such a statement would have been unthinkable from a galactic power on the verge of total victory. But humanity had not fought this war to become like the enemy they had defeated. The final battle, or the first day of peace, would begin tomorrow. 1 year after the Battle of the Planet Killer, representatives from 32 species gathered on neutral ground, a beautiful ocean world called Azure. The Great Hall was built specially for this historic meeting. Admiral Reynolds, now with gray in his once dark hair, stood beside Ambassador Reed as they prepared to sign the Galactic Accord. "Did you ever think we'd see this day?" Reynolds asked quietly. Reed smiled. "Not when we started this war, but perhaps this was always where we were headed." Krell approached them, now serving as the interim leader of the reformed Confederation. "My people still don't fully understand humans," he admitted. "When you had us defeated, we expected conquest. Instead, you offered partnership." "War was never our goal," Reed replied. "Just the means to an end, a galaxy where all species determine their own fate." The signing ceremony began. One by one, representatives added their marks to the document that would reshape galactic politics forever. The Galactic Accord established new principles. No species could rule another without consent. All worlds had the right to self-governance. A council with equal representation would resolve disputes, and a joint defense force, with humans providing much of the training, would protect all member worlds. President Torres signed last. Let this document stand as proof that war, even when necessary, should lead to a better peace. 6 months later, Captain Maria Ortega, in a new ship named after the destroyed Relentless, landed on one of the formerly oppressed worlds. The locals had built a monument to Lieutenant Foster and his team, who had sacrificed themselves to save Earth. The monument stood in a busy public square. Children from different species played nearby, no longer separated as they had been under the old Confederation rules. An older alien approached Maria. "Are you really a human, Captain?" he asked. "I am," she replied. "I fought against your kind in the early battles," he said. "I never understood why my commanders feared humans so much. Now I do." Maria looked confused. "Because we won the war." "No," the old soldier said. "Because of what you did after winning. Any species can fight. Few can show mercy when victory is in their grasp." On Earth, new ships were being built, not warships, but exploration vessels, and massive habitats capable of housing multiple species. The knowledge gained during the war was being turned toward peaceful purposes. In his office overlooking the shipyards, Commander Wilson met with young cadets from 12 different species. "The first joint training program," he told them. "You'll learn from each other as much as from us." A young cadet raised her hand. "Sir, the history books already call this the war that changed everything. Do you think that's true?" Wilson considered the question. Wars rarely change as much as we think they will. But this one was different, because humanity fought not to conquer, but to create something new. In the rebuilt council chambers on the Confederation homeworld, Krell stood before a mural that depicted the key moments of the war. The final panel showed not a battle, but the signing of the accord. A visitor stood beside him. "Some still say we should have kept fighting rather than accepting peace." "They don't understand what happened," Krell replied. "When humanity chose war, the old galaxy was indeed over. But what they built in its place is better than what came before." He touched the mural, his fingers resting on the image of Foster's sacrifice. "The humans taught us something we had forgotten in thousands of years of Confederation rule. True strength lies not in conquering others, but in the courage to build something together." Outside, ships from dozens of worlds moved peacefully through the skies, their paths no longer separate but intertwined, just like the futures of the species who flew them. The war was over. The real work had just begun.